Yeah, bitch. I'm hot as fuck. I ain't never cold, but I'm icy, bitch. Testing, testing. I ain't never cold, but I'm icy. Hello, everyone. Let's send this out to the social media. I'm share on Patreon. I always forget to tell my patrons that I'm live. Does that work? Anyway, hello everyone. What's going on? How's everyone? I'm actually woke up pretty early today. I usually wake up around about now, but I've been waking up a little bit early lately, so last time I streamed, people seemed to agree that streaming a little bit earlier was good, especially for my non-American viewers. So I guess we might start doing that. It's currently 1:15 p.m. I usually would stream around 2 or 3. So speaking of, where are you guys from, or where are you guys currently located? I always like to get sort of an idea. It's usually about half and half, like American and non-American. Do you stay awake all night? I usually stay up pretty late, yeah. I went to bed at maybe like 3 or 4 a.m. this morning. But I still woke up around like 9-ish. Oh, we got 2 people from Mexico. Is it sound okay? It's a little low. I can definitely turn it up. I think it's just because I'm not sitting very close to the mic. I had to change. I need to get another mic stand. I want to get one of those little swivel mics that all the cool streamers have. You know what I'm talking about? The one you can sort of like attach to your desk and like move around. That's what I want. But you can see behind me actually my stand, but I'm actually using it to hold a light currently. And I have another stand that holds another light, and then I have my tripod for my camera, but that's all I have. I don't have any more stuff. So I need to buy something else. The first video I watched from you was the video of you talking about the S thing. Yeah, that is the first video that a lot of people saw from me. That's currently my most viewed video by far, actually. Like, there's no other video that's even close to the same amount of views. Because I think I think it was like front page of Reddit like 3 times. But I guess thanks for sticking around, because I don't really make that kind of video anymore. And you know, a lot of my most popular videos are sort of different from the types of videos I do now. So it's always interesting, the people that decided to stick around. That video has almost 1 million views, not quite 1 million, but close, like 900 something thousand. Do you ever watch your old videos to see what you were like? Rarely, but I watch videos from maybe like a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, but all the videos that are older than that are really cringy for me to watch, because I think they're really bad. So I don't watch them that much. Some of them still get views though, which is kind of horrifying to me, because they're so bad. But I guess if people find them entertaining or useful, that's cool. Yeah, the cultural appropriation is another big one. Basically, I got all of my subscribers from the Mysterious S Thing video, from the cultural appropriation video, and the You're Probably Not a Nice Guy video. That's like where 85% of my subscribers came from. Do you still stand by your why white people can't say the N-word video? I don't really remember what I say in it, but probably. I would probably phrase it more eloquently now, maybe. But I don't imagine that I would disagree with what I said in it. But the S Thing video. Oh, also I got a lot of subscribers from my Disney videos, from my Disney villain deaths. But the culture appropriation video and the You're Probably Not a Nice Guy video are probably topics that I would still do today. So those are pretty. I think those are pretty par for the course. But stuff like the Disney videos and the S videos, I definitely wouldn't make those videos on this channel today. What struck me as odd from that video is that you said some double standards are necessary. Yeah, that's not even a controversial thing to say. Like, it's a double standard that I have a key to my apartment and you don't. That's a double standard, but it's a necessary double standard. I think the actual example that I used in the video was, it's a double standard that I get to have sex with my girlfriend and other people don't. You know, that's a double standard, but I think it's a fair double standard. What do you think about weird kids videos on YouTube? I don't know. Some of that, I haven't watched that many. Basically, I've only seen videos of people reacting to those videos. So I'm not sure, but they do look pretty crazy. First video I saw was alcohol and consent. That's cool. I think that is one of, I don't think it's one of my best videos, but I think that I wish more people watch that video. I think it's one of my most important videos, put it that way. I wish more people watch that video. But it's cool that that's the one that presumably got you to subscribe. Yeah, I saw the Ta-Nehisi Coates answer to the N-word. I thought it was pretty spot on. Definitely more eloquent than what I said. Basically, my whole thing is just don't be an asshole. Like, that's really all it boils down to for me. And it's just really hard to do it without being an asshole. Do you ever feel torn between the serious political topics and more fun stuff like the Disney Kids bids? Well, not anymore, because I don't make like fun stuff like Disney videos anymore on this channel. But I do want to make more light-hearted stuff, but I'm just going to do it on another channel. Like, I pretty much sort of decided the direction of this channel. Why do you think feminists protect Islam? Well, Islam is very unequal to women. Well, it's probably a generalization. It's just say feminists protect Islam, because I know a lot of feminists that are pretty anti-Islam, or pretty anti-religion in general. But the reason that I would say that the reason that a lot of people are pretty iffy about Islam is because people use, I guess, they use their criticisms of Islam to justify or to mask bigotry against Muslims as people. And Muslims are, they're targeted quite frequently. They're frequent targets of bigotry. So I think that's why a lot of people walk on eggshells when you're talking about Islam, because it's hard to a lot of times when you spend all your time criticizing Islam, in doing that you find yourself like validating people who are actually racist or actually bigoted. So I think that's why. Thoughts on Contra? Do you mean ContraPoints, the YouTuber? Or Contra, the video game? I like both. How would you feel if someone said the N-word if they were just quoting what someone else said? Well, asking how I feel isn't really a good question, because I'm just one person. But I don't really spend my time getting upset at people. Like, if people are like not good people or they're rude, I just usually just stop hanging out with them and stop listening to them. In general, I don't think that I think it's fine to use it if you're using it in reference to something someone else said. But the problem is, I think that a lot of white people use that to like try to get away with saying it. So this, they try to. It's sort of like this, sort of like when you grab your little brother's hand, or no, when you're like messing with your little sister or your little brother, and you're like, I'm not touching you, but it's kind of sort of like that. It's like, I'm not really doing anything bad, but I'm trying to get away with something. So I feel like that's what a lot of people are doing, and that's why I'm a little bit suspicious of that. I miss Garrett the YouTuber. Pretty sure Garrett is still making videos. He just kind of made this like secret second channel and didn't tell anybody. Or maybe he did tell people, I'm not sure. Actually, I think he did tell people that he had another channel, but he doesn't really promote it, and I don't think he's on social media anymore. And I don't really remember what it is. But I don't think he makes videos about like feminism and stuff anymore. But yeah, I saw there was a recent video. I can't remember, but it was a Garrett video, and everybody, well, not everybody, but someone had sort of pointed out, I was like, hey, Garrett is actually still making videos. Why do you think there's not a thank the white man for abolishing slavery day? Because they didn't invent slavery, but they were the ones who abolished it. Is this a serious question? They didn't invent slavery, but they did utilize it. You don't really get a cookie for doing something that you're supposed to do in the first place, especially if it took you like 500 years to do it. That's like if I don't know. That's like getting a medal for not murdering someone. It's like, congratulations, you went 10 years without murdering someone. You get your own holiday. But I'm not sure that this is a serious inquiry. Did anybody do Thanksgiving stuff? I know that there's some Americans in here. I feel like there was a lot of people who weren't Americans, but we had like so much food. We had like too much food, which is crazy because there was a whole lot of people there. But there was so much food left over when we were done. I'm all about food-based holidays. There's no way that he's serious. Yeah, Canadian Thanksgiving is Canadian Thanksgiving the same deal as American Thanksgiving? You like eat turkey and stuff? Is that like the same thing? I wonder why it's on a different day. I guess because they have different origin stories. I don't even know the origin of Canadian Thanksgiving. Do. I missed the live stream with you drinking with your friends. Huh. Maybe we can do one of those at some point. The problem is everyone is just busy. And we would usually stream before we went out to like hang out at the bar or something, and just none of us really go to the bar as much as we used to. Mainly because we're busy, but also because we don't want to. It's not that good. It's not that good of an idea to go to the bar all the time. I probably go out. Well, I definitely still go out more than they do, the people that I used to stream with, but still much less than I did before. Also, we don't live close to each other anymore. Well, what it was I used to live really close to where all of the restaurants and bars were. So like they would just come over to my apartment and then we just leave out from there. But now we've all moved, out of town, so it's just kind of inconvenient. So even if we were gonna hang out, we would probably wouldn't stream first. We would just meet down there. But it was fun, I guess. Did anyone watch Hank Green's fake explanation of Thanksgiving? Do you mean the Black Friday explanation? Yeah. I did see that. I mean, it was pretty sure that it was fake because he started it by saying Black Friday is the day where we all turn our lights off or something. I was like, well, yeah, that's not what Black Friday is. But it was an interesting story. Can people watch? No. Okay. I like embedded my stream in Patreon, but it doesn't work. I have to figure out how to. Patreon has this thing where you can stream through Patreon using YouTube, but I'm not sure how it works. Maybe I'll try that next week. That way the patrons can watch on Patreon and then everyone else can watch on YouTube. Found your channel from your chat with Contra. Love your work. Keep it up. Cool. Thanks. Yeah, I got a lot of subscribers from ContraPoints, which is cool. It's kind of I think it's kind of like paying it forward, because actually when ContraPoints first started, not when she first started, but when she like first started the ContraPoints channel, like I gave her a shout out in one of my videos, and I think she got, I don't think she got like a huge burst of subscribers, but she probably got like a couple hundred subscribers for me. And so now it's kind of like paying it forward, where she's sending some of her subscribers that she's built over the years, or over the past year, back to me. And I would say that she has, I don't know, she kind of like has an army over there. Like she has really engaged her fans in a way that is really unique, better than I have, I think. But I got like maybe a couple hundred subscribers from that, so that's pretty cool. What is drinking culture like down here? It's practically ubiquitous in Wisconsin. Yeah, it's pretty ubiquitous here as well. It's the thing is, in Birmingham where I live, there's not much to do at night except drink. And bars and restaurants are like really, really big down here. Like every day there's a new bar or restaurant opening up. Like it's pretty crazy. I think it's trying to be like a mini sort of Nashville or a mini like New Orleans type place where it's just all about sort of nightlife and partying and stuff. So there's bars and stuff everywhere, and everyone's drunk all the time. And we have like late night bars, like bars that stay open. Like the bar that I usually go to stays open till 7 a.m. And then there's bars that stay open 24 hours. So it's like it's a huge emphasis on late night and even like super late night. All of our videos are so cinematic. It's like a little mini movie every time. Yeah, indeed. I'm actually trying to like learn some things from watching people like ContraPoints and H Bomber Guy, who just have like really interesting videos that, with different scenes and like scripted parts and stuff like that. I probably can't do what they do and still keep up the frequency that I want to keep, but I want to make my videos more exciting like that too, and I'm trying to think of different ways to do it. The videos take a lot. Yeah, that's why I don't think that I will be able to do it every time, and that's why they make like one video a month as well. But the videos are so good that people are so excited whenever the videos drop. And I want to get to that point as well. I think that having contemporaries that are making great videos sort of encourages me to try my best to make better and better videos. Because back in the day, it was just a bunch of vloggers, it was just people like talking to their webcams and trying to be funny or like giving their opinion. So there wasn't that much like creative competition. So, but now there's some really, really good stuff out there. Vloggers and back in the day in the same sentence. Raise your hand if you feel old now. Well, vloggers are still a thing. It's just kind of changed what vlogging is. Like back in the early days of YouTube, a vlogger was just basically anybody that was talking to a camera, like that was communicating to an audience through a camera, basically. But now vlogging kind of very specifically refers to a certain kind of YouTuber. And then there's like vloggers and daily vloggers. And then there's like daily vloggers, but they don't vlog daily, but they just have the daily vlog style. Sort of like day in the life blogging. But yeah, I mean, YouTube is like what, 12, 13 years old now? And arguably 13 years old is still not back in the day, but as far as YouTube as a thing goes, the early days of YouTube is back in the day. Have I ever watched Black Mirror? I have not watched it. Guess YouTube's not old enough to drink. Yeah. Stuff does move fast on the internet. if you look at what was popular in 2005 or 2006, it's just a completely different world. Even just on YouTube, like, 2006, that's when, like, stuff like Geriatric 1920 and like old Naramon videos and like fucking Lisa Nova and Happy Slip, like shit that you just never hear about anymore. And then like a couple years after that is when you got like Vlogbrothers and Charlie McDonald and Mika Kitty and Dan Brown. And then like maybe 2012, 2013 is when you started getting like Grace Helbig and Jenna Marbles and Hannah Hart and like those people. And it's crazy to think about, but those people aren't even, they're like barely, they all have like pretty good careers, but they're not like the stars of YouTube anymore. Now we have people like Liza Koshy and Gabby Hanna and fucking I don't know. It's hard to even keep up these days. Dan Brown, the Rubik's Cube guy, yeah. For a minute, he was like one of the biggest stars on YouTube. There's not as much collaboration within leftist YouTube, or at least the same amount. I think this is how the right has done so well. They seem more unified. I agree with that. The problem is the right is much more open to accepting people as allies than the left is, which could be a good thing and a bad thing for them. Like, I don't know, the leftists are usually much more principled. So if there's a person who is, they agree with on some things, but there's like one or two big things that they just can't get down with, then they probably won't collaborate with them. But the right doesn't do that, They can have like huge disagreements, but if they narrowly agree on one thing, then they'll promote each other and stuff like that. But I do think that progressives and leftists need to collaborate more. I also think that the right, because of the nature of their platform, and because of the nature of their the types of stuff they make on YouTube, they build audiences quicker, just because it's really easy to just get a bunch of like teenage boys mad about something. So you can build an audience like really quick, and you can get a lot of views and stuff, and then you can start building resources and like get your Patreon going and start actually making money like much faster than a progressive YouTuber can. And I think the fact that they just have more resources generally allows them to collaborate more too. To be honest, sometimes I kind of miss when YouTube was mostly no budget people making entertaining little videos like shoes and chocolate rain. Yeah, I mean some of those videos are really cool and like nostalgic, but we were just talking about ContraPoints and how amazing her videos are. Like that wouldn't have flew in 2006 YouTube. So I think there's some evolution that is good. How do you decide who to give money on Patreon? I don't know. It's kind of on a whim. Basically, the people that I support on Patreon are people that are just that I think are making really really good content that is underrated. Basically, if it's underrated and it's really really good, then I'll probably support you on Patreon. There's some things that I think is really good, but I don't think it's underrated, like fucking Crash Course or something. Like Crash Course has a Patreon, but I don't support it because I think they're doing fine, and I think that people know about Crash Course and know that it's amazing. But you know, something like I support Sexplanations, for example. I think that that's a super massively underrated channel. Like I think it's one of the best channels of all time, much less currently. So I support Sexplanations. Are there any YouTube from the other side you sometimes like? Not always, but sometimes. Also, do you think a dialogue will happen between the two sides and how to make it happen? Someone, I get asked this question a lot and I don't really know how to answer it. Like, if you mean by the other side, you mean people who like proudly identify as anti-feminist and anti-social justice warriors, then I don't, they don't make videos that I'm interested in. So I don't really like any of their videos because I don't, it's sort of like, you know, asking me like, you know, if you like go to a biologist and you ask them, are there any like creationism videos that you really enjoy? Like it's just fundamentally in opposition to the things that I agree with, and the things that I know to be true. But there are some of those people that seem to be decent people, and that's fine. But if you're talking about their content, then it just doesn't really seem to, it doesn't compute. It's kind of an incoherent question. In terms of dialogue, there has been dialogue between people. Usually doesn't go well, but sometimes it does. But to say that there hasn't been, to imply that there hasn't been any dialogue, I think is incorrect. A friend of mine coined social justice suicide bomber for progressives who pick nasty fights with other progressives over perceived lack of ideological purity. What do you think of the label? I think the term is pretty dramatic, but that's definitely a thing. I just sort of I just made a sort of a tweet storm about this recently, and I think it's something that's harming our community because it's not because it's a problem, not because it in of itself is a problem, because you know there's gonna be, you know, wacky people saying wacky stuff all the time, and there's going to be people who are going to be combative and offended at everything. But the problem is it's like causing some of our best people, some of our brightest voices to be discouraged and to want to not make videos, or to be unsure if their videos are good, or just be unsure of themselves if they're a good person, if they're, you know, pleasing enough people, if they're problematic, like that sort of thing. And that's the problem, is when you're like actually making it so that our best content creators don't want to make content, like that's a problem. Like the, you know, actually I was inspired to write those tweet storms because of the whole thing that went on with Ash Hardell, where she like took a break for like a couple months or weeks or whatever, because she was just overwhelmed by just, you know, how people would feel about her, and if she was like too problematic and stuff like that. And it's like, that doesn't need to happen. And I think a lot of that is her own personal anxiety, but at the same time, you know, and it's happened to other people too. It's happened, you know, it happened to ContraPoints, and it's happened throughout this whole thing. It's happened to me. Like I actually am releasing a video. Well, a stream highlight is coming out like actually in about 7 minutes, and it's something about it's about liking problematic people, and it's a thing that probably like a good bit of my audience isn't going to like, but I had to get to a point where it's like I have my views and my thoughts, and I assume people subscribe to me because they find my thoughts interesting. And if you need to 100% agree with me in order to be satisfied as a subscriber, like you're probably gonna have a bad time. The problem is a lot of people, especially people on the left, they equate disagreements on things with like actual like villainous actions. Like there are some things that I would say pretty confidently that it's not okay to disagree with me about. Like if I say like it's bad to be racist, and you say, well, I disagree with that, I don't think I would respect that. But most things can be debated to some extent. Even if you like strongly believe it, you can still talk about it without completely writing the other person off. And I think that is what a lot of people fail to do. Like, and the thing is, the main problem with it is when it's discouraging people from actually wanting to make content, or when the idea is that, I'm not going to support this person because of this. There's a couple things that I don't like about them, even though they're making great content that's helping my cause. And like a good example of that is Destiny. Like Destiny, by most like progressive standards, is like pretty quote unquote problematic. Like, he's pro-life, he calls people autistic and retarded all the time, stuff like that. But in terms of like content, and especially in terms of delegitimizing the ideas of the alt-right, I don't think anybody on YouTube is doing more work than Destiny right now. So to try to like to cut him off or to discourage him from making content is a huge mistake for progressives to do. Like, it's just not smart. If you want to win, it's just not smart. So that's just sort of an example of what I mean. But it seems like a lot of progressives just don't care. They would rather be righteous than actually practically have the things that they want to happen. So I don't know. I think I missed a lot of comments during that little diatribe. I did not see Pac-Man's video on race and IQ. That seems like a treacherous subject to tackle. But it seems like David Pac-Man is usually pretty intellectual when he talks about stuff, so I'm not sure. I'm sub to Destiny and not Ruben. Me too. I used to be sub to Dave Rubin, but then Dave Rubin went off the deep end, and I was like, oh. Is it more valuable to have Destiny as an ally versus having the people he might alienate be heard? I guess it depends on what you consider valuable. Like I said, if your goal is to just to position yourself as the morally righteous one, then probably not. But if your goal is to delegitimize the alt-right and win, then probably. I also think that's kind of a false dichotomy. But I've always said that the left is really bad at strategy, and that's the thing with the right is they all they care about is winning, and that's a problem because they're willing to completely support immoral things and immoral people for the sake of winning. But the thing is, the left just completely doesn't give a shit about winning, and that's also a problem. But I mean, the problem, the thing is, you don't. I think that we push the line too far. I'm not saying that anybody that is kind of saying stuff that's helping you, that means that you have to let them say whatever they want and not criticize them. And I'm not even saying that you don't have to criticize people. Feel free to criticize Destiny or anybody. That's healthy, that's fine. But the problem is when you start calling for people's heads to be chopped off or completely dismissing entire platforms because of the couple of things that you disagree with. That's where it becomes a problem. But that's just one example. I just think that that's a very easy, glaring example in the current YouTube space. But I mean, there's other things going on, other people, other examples. But I think the Destiny thing is a really good illustration of what I'm trying to say. Even people like I don't know, Bill Maher is another kind of example. But Bill Maher is more so if you are a American liberal or a Democrat or something. A lot of people like to demonize Bill Maher and just sort of write him completely off. But Bill Maher is doing a whole lot to further the discourse and to present leftist ideas to a wide audience. So you need Bill Maher if you want to win, basically. What? Oh, thanks for the super chat, Electric Low Main. What up, T1J? Which wrestler had your all-time favorite finishing move? And who's your favorite tag team of all time? Which wrestler had my all-time favorite finishing move? It's the tie between the Gangrel Impaler DDT. That shit was dope. And also the Bradshaw Clothesline from Hell. Probably the Clothesline from Hell is my favorite finishing move of all time. That shit was crazy. Shit was brutal. My favorite tag team of all time. Probably when Kane and Undertaker teamed up for that short period of time. They were called the Brothers of Destruction. It was amazing. They were just like stomping everybody. Have I ever watched Roaming Millennial? If so, what do I think of her? I haven't watched a lot of Roaming Millennial. Usually, from what I've watched, it's usually just like really frustratingly, like uninformed, basically. At least from what I've watched, she seems like a pleasant person. She seems pretty nice, but it seems like most of her ideas are just the same sort of uninformed conservative nonsense. People are just we're just really bad at being disagreed with. We need to be better at being disagreed with. I think that just people right now are just really bad at that. And I guess it's because we care too much about our opinions and we like get so personally invested in our political views. And to some extent, I can agree that, especially if it's like specifically related to your life or your identity, then okay. But we really have to get better at being disagreed with. Oh yeah, the new video just came out. It's just a stream highlight and it's like a minute and 50 seconds long or something like that. So if you guys want to go watch my new video, you should do that. All it is a stream highlight, and we can talk about it actually because it's literally related to what we've been talking about. It's about another person that a lot of people find problematic, Joe Rogan, who I like. I actually like Joe Rogan more than I like Bill Maher. I think a lot of problems I think are people, and this is another problem I think with leftists, especially intellectual leftists, like the right conservatives are like way more confrontational in like when they're doing interviews and stuff like that, and even when they're the guests of interviews. But leftists are like a lot less confrontational, a lot less polite, and I think that's why a lot of these people get away with having like kind of uninformed beliefs, because no one just ever questions them, or no one like really directly challenges them, like and that just definitely needs to happen more. I read a thoughtful piece this week about why Franken should step down to set an example for others who've behaved more heinously. What do you think? I mean, I'd be okay with that. It's not okay for any adult to prey on any child, regardless of the gender of either person. I feel like that shouldn't be controversial. I think there are people that literally don't understand that you can disagree with someone on something, even disagree with someone on something like really important, and still like them. I think people believe that once you disagree with someone on something important, that you're not allowed to like them anymore. But I think that's a problem. We need to get better at that. I assume that my video is live now, right? My computer going slow, man. I need a new computer. I need to check out these Cyber Monday deals. Okay, my video is up. Okay. Or you can dislike people that you agree with as well. Indeed. Yeah, there are definitely people who I agree with on stuff that I don't like. Or that I just don't, that I'm lukewarm about. What are your thoughts on sanctuary cities? Well, it seems to be the moral thing to do, but I don't really know. I don't really know all of the details of what happens when you do that, when you have a sanctuary city. But the problem is just the immigration is just all a huge mess, and we need to fix it. And the fact that we're doing all these sort of like band-aid, fixes is just, it's never going to be sustainable. Thoughts on Res Please? Res Please is a very nice person. And some of her videos are interesting. I think that she's sort of fallen into this sort of centrist horseshoe theory type stuff, which I think is mostly nonsense. Like the idea that the left is just as bad as the right type stuff, which I don't agree with or think is kind of a helpful thing to do. But overall, I think she's a pretty fine person. No, I think the horseshoe theory is complete nonsense. And it's kind of a way. The thing about it is it's kind of a way to, uh, in order to like fit the narrative that extremists on both sides are equal, you have to paint people who aren't extremists as extremists, and that's the problem. Or to like basically tell uh, untruths about certain groups of people to make them seem like they're just as bad. Like how people are trying to say that Antifa is as bad as Nazis. Like they're not. I mean, maybe Antifa has problems, or maybe you disagree with their approach, but to say that they're as bad as Nazis is just actually ridiculous. So that's the problem with the horseshoe theory. So you have to like basically lie in order for it to make sense. We have to get away from like sort of making arguments just based on like hunches and what makes sense to us personally. Like I don't really like that argumentation. Like you can't really argue against that, because you can just say, I don't know, it just feels right to me. It feels like that's right. Um, but that's just not a good way to argue. People say that Antifa is worse because they're the ones attacking people, while the Nazis are just using free speech. Thoughts on this? Well, it's just not true that Nazis are just using free speech. Um, and this is the problem, and I think this has like been kind of a success of this recent Nazi movement, is they've convinced people that they're nonviolent when they actually aren't at all and never have been. Like white supremacists and Nazis have been terrorizing and killing people pretty much nonstop for decades. And this is just, this recent movement is nothing. I don't know. They're trying to like frame themselves as just like free speech warriors, even though like a dude literally just ran over a girl not too long ago. It was like, oh no, they're nonviolent. Oh. And then there's also the idea that the entire white nationalist Nazi propaganda story is inherently violent in and of itself. And there's a level of, there has to be a level at which someone is threatening you or your society enough to where you're allowed to defend yourself. I don't know if that level has been reached, but there has to be that level at some point. Like if someone comes up to your house and says, hey, I'm going to kill you and your family tomorrow, and then you try to do something about it physically, I don't think anyone is going to be upset. You can call the police, you can do that type of stuff too. But if you decided to do something physical, I really doubt that people would be mad at you. Do you think the usage of Nazi has been useful, or does it make matters worse by mislabeling? I don't think that calling white supremacists and white nationalists Nazis is mislabeling. I think it's fitting. I mean, they're neo-Nazis. I mean, if that's what you want to call it, but I don't think that's a mislabel. I've been hearing people say Antifa instead of Antifa. I don't know how you say it. I've heard people say Antifa. I mean, when our side calls someone Nazi wrongfully, well, I feel like the only people who do that are like just mad people on Twitter. Like, I feel like the idea that people call people who clearly aren't Nazis all the time is just not, I think it's an overblown thing. I feel like that's really not a thing besides just like random anonymous people on Twitter. Like, if someone gets called a Nazi, it's probably either because they are a Nazi or because they're acting like a Nazi. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just haven't seen it. But I don't know. I think the problem is that people sort of get triggered by the word Nazi, even if it might be like, you know, at least figuratively correct. You know, like a good example is Donald Trump. Like, people get mad if you call Donald Trump a Nazi. But I think that Donald Trump is essentially a white supremacist. I don't think he identifies as a white supremacist, but I think that he is fighting for white supremacy. So, like, if someone calls him a Nazi, I don't have a problem with that, because I think white supremacists are essentially neo-Nazis. So that's the sort of thing. But that's the point. This is the problem. Is like, we sort of use like these examples of like just emotional anonymous Twitter people as like, that's the arguments of the left. And it's like, that's not how you do it. That's not the best way to do it. Like, if you want to argue against what we're talking about, then look at the people that are intellectually phrasing these arguments in a way that makes more sense. Like, don't argue. Don't say like what people are on Twitter. Don't say that what people on Twitter are saying is the argument, because people are always going to be crazy. And it's the same thing on the right too. Like, are there any who's calling people Nazis? Like, who are these people? Where are they? Are there any like speakers, writers, journalists, any public figures that are, you know, participating in the discourse that are just like randomly calling people who are very clearly not Nazis? Is that a thing? That, like, can you give me an example of that happening? Or are you just literally talking about people on Twitter? Oh, what's up, Rez, please? Someone asked about you earlier. Do you think there's a point to arguing or debating with people we disagree with? Obviously. That's like the it's like the whole point of debating. Wondering why the fuck the hate speech is legal in your country. Everyone talks about the First Amendment, but in most of the European countries, freedom of speech is more restricted than in U.S. Well, that's because what counts as hate speech is subjective. You know, in the 1960s, what Martin Luther King was saying was considered hate speech. So if hate speech was illegal, then Martin Luther King would have promptly been silenced, and that would have been really bad. What do you do to make your ideas accessible? I don't know. I don't know that I do anything in particular to make my ideas accessible. I just try to show empathy. I try to be compassionate and not be exclusive. Do you think people should be able to say anything on sites like Twitter and never ban anyone? Maybe the way they enforce their terms of service is really the problem. I don't know. The Twitter thing is interesting because I think that free speech. I think the speech has to be free if you're interested in hearing the best ideas. But the thing about Twitter is that basically a bunch of like really shitty people specifically like kind of took over Twitter, and like they kind of broke Twitter, and they kind of like specifically exploited Twitter's free speech policy. So that's an interesting argument against free speech is if you get enough people that specifically hack the system to where it's basically now just a bunch of like harassment and nonsense on Twitter. That's an interesting argument against the whole free speech thing that Twitter was trying to do. But but like I said, if you're interested in hearing the best ideas, then speech has to be free, because if it's not, then people who happen to be offended by the best ideas will just ban those ideas, or do their best to silence them. But I think you have to have. I think the problem with Twitter is Twitter's, at least when Twitter started, that their idea about free speech is even more radical than how America has their own free speech. Because, for example, Twitter basically said that, like specifically harassing and threatening people was fine. Basically, in the beginning, that was their policy. And even in America, that's not okay. Even in America's law, that's not okay. So maybe that was part of the problem. How do you feel about veganism as a whole? It's fine. It's not my jam, but it's fine. Don't you think everyone gets harassed on Twitter? No matter your opinion, if you express it on Twitter, you're going to get people calling you a dumbass for saying it. Well, some people definitely get harassed more than other people. But the idea that it should be normal for you to just be harassed and threatened all the time, I think is flawed. Like, when you go out in the world, you shouldn't be harassed and threatened and called a dumbass every day. And you shouldn't online either. Millionaire Robot, I explained the reason why I said that, and you kind of just took it out of context. If you have an argument against my argument, that's fine. But if you're just going to quote me out of context and just claim that the line in and of itself is just like inherently flawed, and you don't have to explain why, then I don't think that's a very compelling argument. But if you have a response to the actual argument I made earlier, then feel free to share it. Is regulating harassment on Twitter even possible? It's definitely possible, but they're gonna have to go back on their whole free speech thing. Like, if you look at Facebook is like super anal about harassment and any kind of transgression. Like, you can get banned on Facebook for for just being a little mean to people. don't think that you can actually I don't think you can actually like fault an animal for being racist. What do you mean about Martin Luther King and the hate speech? I just mean in the 1950s and before, people that were arguing for equal rights for black people were thought by the general public and by most in authority to be racist against white people and to be spreading hate speech against white people, because that was just the culture of the time. And that's why free speech was important. And they didn't even really have full free speech because they were black. Like, they got put in jail all the time for saying stuff. But that's just how America used to be. So, but just as an example, if basically the point is that what counts as hate speech is subjective. It's because you think that you now are on the right side of history and you like know what's hate speech and what isn't. There's always going to be someone that has a different idea of what counts as hate speech. And if that person thinks that hate speech should be illegal, then they're just going to make whatever speech that they personally they think is hate speech illegal. And that's just not a good idea. You think we in Europe should abolish those laws about hate speech? I don't know. If it's working for you, then go for it. I think that laws banning free expression are bad. I don't agree with them. But if you think it's working, then go for it. Why do you think talking about rights of people of color these days is looked at as anti-white? I know a few non-racist people on YouTube that feel this way. Are you sure they're non-racist? Anyway, it's really easy to, like, people just get defensive. That's just a human thing. Whenever people, I think the idea is like people get defensive because they think that you're accusing them of doing something bad. And people don't want to feel like they've done anything bad. But I think it's just a matter of not really paying attention and not listening. And I also think it's a matter of people spreading that narrative specifically. Like, all these conservative outlets, all these YouTubers are spreading the idea that it's anti-white without... So all the people that are listening to them don't really actually hear the real arguments. All they hear are these demagogues on YouTube like crying about it, and that's where they get their whole understanding of the situation from. There's this whole idea that Martin Luther King Jr. was like popular when he was active, and I think this is like the really funny thing about American and how we look back on our history. Like, we look back on history with rose-tinted glasses for sure. But there's this idea that Martin Luther King was like well liked and people loved him. He was like this hero to America. It's like, no, when he was active, everybody hated him. Like, he was like a very unpopular person in America, and they literally killed him. That's how unpopular he was. They like actually legit killed him. You know, they threw him in jail a bunch of times. You know, like he was not popular until after he died, and we realized he was right. That's when he became popular. Uh, well, the problem is you can't pick and choose what is hate speech and what's not. It's subjective. That's the problem. You can, I mean, you can find examples, but you can't preemptively ban future hate speech. You either have to ban it all, which is going to include potentially good ideas, or you just have to find a randomly pick and choose, which is going to almost certainly either you're going to ban it or it's going to like certainly result in problems basically. I don't know that much about like European law and stuff, so I can't really comment. But you know, I've heard, you know, I can't really think of one now, but you know, every now and then you hear a story about someone where, you know, they get in trouble because they said something or they did something, and you kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's like, you know, that shouldn't be a thing. Like, I don't, and I'm not saying American laws are perfect, but you know, I don't have these views just because I just like have a hunch that America's doing it right. It's just like what makes sense to me, and what, given what has happened and what could have happened, it's what makes the most sense. Intent, that's the thing, you can't define intent to harm or defame. Like I continue to use the Martin Luther King example. Like it's just a very good example of a culture that was just deeply offended by what he was saying and literally thought that he was spreading hatred. And a culture like that that bans hate speech would ban that speech. And we just know, we basically agree as a world that what he was saying were the right ideas. The Well, the whole point of this live stream is a barrage of questions. That's like that's what it is. Do I have any thoughts on fandom? Is that how you say that? I don't know who that is. Is that a person? Or are you talking about fanon? Like fan canon? Oh. I don't know that it's that hard to define libel or slander. What should you have for breakfast? I don't know. I like have eggs and I have like eggs for breakfast like every day. Some with some kind of meat and usually spinach. So eggs and spinach. Is every Pizzagate conspiracy theorist a libelous? No, because that's the way. That's why people. Well, that's why people are very careful with the way they word things. I mean, technically, if you say like 100% yes, Hillary Clinton is involved in yada yada yada, that's definitely libel. It's 100% libel. If you're just some random dude on the internet, then it's unlikely that anyone's going to do anything to you. But it's definitely libel. I mean, you still libeled, you still slandered someone for sure. I don't feel like that's like confusing at all. I don't think that you believing what you say has anything to do with whether or not it's slander. I already explained the Trump thing, and you like completely ignored my explanation. So I'm not going to engage this line of conversation with you, Mr. or Mrs. Millionaire Robot. I kind of feel like you're trolling me, and I don't. It's kind of boring. But I did explain it earlier, and you didn't. You're ignoring the context of what I said. So I'm not doing it. So there you go. And I already said before, if you have an answer to what I said earlier, that'd be fine. But you apparently don't care about my explanation, which is why I don't know why you keep asking, because I already explained. This chat has gone by really really quickly. Like it's already been an hour 40 minutes. I feel like I just started. So yeah, you're definitely trolling me because you know that I said more than that. So all right, I'm gonna stop responding to you right now. I mean, the first thing that you said in this chat was talking about fucking like I don't know. You've been talking nonsense the whole time. So I guess we're gonna stream for about 30 more minutes for sure. We're approaching that 2-hour mark. Franz Fanon was a revolutionary writer who influenced post-colonial theory. He was pretty badass. He referred to himself in the third person. It was pretty awesome in general. Interesting. Am I into comics? I haven't read a comic book in a long time, but I like, you know, the comic book universes and stuff, and I like superhero movies. I used to really be into comics. I used to enjoy comics. But I haven't read one in a long time. Yeah, I think I just need more mods. Like, I don't know. I was on the fence of if I was going to time him out because it was getting pretty annoying. But, you know, my idea is, you know, as long as you're being civil, then I'm not going to time you out even if you're obnoxious. But if another mod does it, then go for it. I'm not going to stop him. I just modded you, Rez, please, by the way. I'm trying to find like people that I know and have been around for a while to mod, because I just need more mods, I think. Can you recommend some good leftist YouTubers who do you watch? Good leftist YouTubers. Marina Shut Up, ContraPoints, Tomavella, H Bomber Guy. And I assume you're talking about YouTubers that talk about leftist politics and leftist like social issues and stuff. Because there are leftists who don't talk about that kind of stuff. Like Lindsay Ellis makes like pop culture videos, which are really good, and like Vlogbrothers, you know, they're obviously progressives. But Electro Lamaine, thank you for the $5 super chat. Have you ever been interested in finding out your roots? I recently found out which slave owner owned my ancestors. I am interested in that. I would love to do that. I'm not even sure how you go about doing that, but I would love to do that. I remember in high school I had a we had like a project to sort of like find out as much as we could about like our ancestors, not ancestors, but like our family tree, just to like go back as far in our family tree as we could find. Basically just through like research and asking our family members. And it was pretty interesting. Like, I didn't get all the way back to like the slave owners, but I think that like at least I did it for my mom's side, and my mom's grandfather lived in St. Lucia, which, if you don't know, is like an island in the Caribbean area. And so I'm guessing that my my great whatever grandparents were slaves in St. Lucia, and maybe that's where we came in. I don't know about my dad's side though. Do you watch any current anime? No, not really. Well, not at all. Yeah, there's the like the 23andMe, I think it's called. Is that what it's called? Well, you can they like check your DNA or some stuff, and it's actually pretty affordable. Like, I think it's just like $100 or something. But I don't know how much information they actually give you. Like, I feel like they just kind of tell you like the geographical region where you're from. Chris George, first time viewer. Hello. You have caught basically the last 20 minutes of the stream, but thank you for coming. Do you have an opinion on who's doing diversity better between Marvel or DC? I don't know. I probably don't follow either enough to know. I would guess Marvel, though, just based on what I do know. But I'm also more familiar with Marvel, so that I'm probably not a good judge. Do you think it was okay to block that guy from the chat? I don't want to overstep my authority as a mod. I don't know. I don't care. The thing about it is, like, I actually was gonna be like, stop spamming. I think probably it's good to like do a warning, maybe first. But I don't think anyone is mad that you timed them out. But maybe do a warning. But the thing is, like, I don't want the chat. Like, I'm not the chat on. Yeah, I'll mod you, Electric. I mean, the chat. I want the chat to be pleasant. Okay, like I treat the chat much differently than I treat, like, for example, like my social media or my YouTube comments. Like, I don't want people to like. I don't want people in the chat to feel like it's not pleasant and it's annoying and there's some guy or some person in there that's being ridiculous. So, like, if that's the case, like, if it's like a not pleasant situation, then I'm okay with fixing that. However, even if they're not like technically breaking any rules, if you're like making my chat like not fun to be in, then I'm okay with you being kicked. Which is, and that like, I think I've had to maybe block like 4 people total in all of the years that I've been live streaming. So it's not usually a problem. And it kind of sucks because, I 100% this guy's going to come back and be like, oh, they banned me because I was saying things they disagree with. Like, that's 100% going to happen. But, and you don't want to give people ammo to make those kind of statements, but at the end of the day, it's worth it. Have you ever seen Theodore Rex? No. I mean, it's okay to ask questions. That's the point of the stream. I He was trying to hammer a point, and I responded to him like 3 times, and he wouldn't stop. So like often I'm like, I'm just gonna ignore this person because they're like trolling me, but I don't know. Like people, you get sucked into these conversations where it's very clear that the person is not using good faith and they're like fucking with you. Like it's like obviously that's what's happening, but you know they can sort of play coy. It's like, no, I'm being serious. Like, no, you're not, and everybody knows it. Like, dude, like I'm grown. Like I know how. Like I've been around. Like I know how this works. And it's like you get sucked into these arguments, and they make you look like the crazy one, because you're the one that's like getting upset or getting frustrated. So they make it look like you're the one that's being ridiculous, when it's obviously that they're fucking with you. And like that happens to me a lot. Like I'm bad at falling for that. So I've tried, like usually I just kind of like ignore people or just be like, okay, I'm done with this, but sometimes I still fall for it. What do they teach you at schools about European history? Because I've only learned about how U.S. has become a country, a little bit about Civil War, and later you are appearing in the end of the war. What? Anyway, I don't think we're like required to learn about European. Like we learn world history, and then we learn U.S. history, and you know obviously there's some European history speckled in there. And in fact, much of it is European history. But if you want to like specifically hammer down European history, I think you have to take a specific like specialized course. And we did learn a lot about world history. I think we were required to in high school, but I don't really remember most of it. What's up, Casey? Yeah. Oh, Auburn. At least Auburn actually won the game clean this time instead of doing some crazy stupid shit at the end of the game. Yeah, I don't think I've ever learned anything about Canadian history. That would be interesting to research actually. I don't know anything about Canada's history. How did Canada come to be? I want to go to Canada. I've never been to Canada. I just want to go. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, I can't even be mad at Auburn. They just like legit outplayed us. Us being Alabama, that's my team. But you know, as you get older too, you kind of realize that much of the world history that you were taught is like really heavily like edited and biased and like not really telling the whole story. Like I didn't learn the truth about Christopher Columbus until I got to college. If you don't know, Christopher Columbus was kind of a douchebag. What do you think of YouTuber Shoe on Head? I think that she's generally a nice person, but I think she makes obnoxious videos. But she's funny and she's nice. I just disagree with her on everything. Do you have any tips for my brother who's going to travel the U.S. from Florida through Texas to California to get a real cool feel about the U.S.? I don't know. Like, I'm probably not the best person to ask about that because I haven't traveled that much. I've only been basically to the South, to different cities in the South. But I think, you know, if you go from Florida, Texas, California, like, you'll definitely see 3 different U.S. cultures. Like, it would be dope if you could also make it somewhere up to the East Coast, because that's also like a different culture, or that person. But do you watch The Rap Critic? I have seen it before. I don't watch him like a lot, but it's pretty good from what I've seen. Oh, there's definitely not just one American culture. Like, even if you just go the next state over, it's different. Like, you know, if you go, I live in Alabama. If you go over to Mississippi, the culture's different. If you go over to Louisiana, it's different. You go to Tennessee, it's slightly different. You know, and then especially if you go like completely different regions, like people in California, just it's a completely different culture than people in Boston. Do you think Tommy Lauren believes in what she says, or is she playing a conservative character for attention? It's probably a combination of both of those things. Or it's probably like she's just so heavily biased that she just automatically sort of filters out anything that sort of contradicts her bias. So I don't know. I don't even know if it's like a matter of if she believes it. It's just that's just what she needs to be the case. So that's just what she says. But she probably believes most of that stuff. She's probably not as mad about it as she makes it seem like she is. That's probably, you know, just a character, basically. Do they talk about the genocide of the Native Americans at schools? We learned about it. Probably not the whole thing. Probably not every aspect of it. And I've seen like things where they're apparently like they're dumbing it down even more for kids today. I don't know if that's how it is all over the country, but I just saw like a little thing about it. Everything she says is like she's reading a script super fast. Well, I think she is reading a script super fast. But I mean, like, that's fine. It's okay to read a script. Hey, could someone here help out our Cleveland Browns? We cannot go 0-16. Have they not won any? Why are the Browns always so bad? Have they ever been good? Oh, and 11. Damn. Well, if you go 0-16, you get like a really good draft pick. You would think that Cleveland Browns would be like the best team in America because they like always get like first pick, don't they? Or close to it. Anyway, we got about like 10 more minutes. Teacher definitely stressed that the Trail of Tears was a tragedy and should have never happened. Yeah, I definitely remember being taught about the Trail of Tears. I think that sometimes that they sort of dumb down things for kids, which may be a good thing to do. Like, you know, for example, we learned about the transatlantic slave trade, but they definitely didn't tell us how brutal that shit was. And probably just because as children, you know, we probably couldn't handle that. But we were taught about it. Yeah, I'm gonna be wrapping up the stream in a little bit. So if you have any like final questions here or comments or anything like that, want to tell me a story real quick, that's cool. Definitely appreciate everyone for coming to the stream. It really went by fast for me this time. Did it go by fast for y'all? Like, I feel like I've been streaming for like 20 minutes, but it's been 2 hours. And also, do you guys last week when I did the stream, people really liked the earlier time? Because usually I would be streaming starting about now or maybe an hour before, but most people like that I started earlier. Do you guys agree with that? Because I know a few people came in late, and maybe that would be better for them. I don't know. Miss you, love you too, Casey. Buy me something, dude. Buy me some jeans. What is the meaning of life? The meaning of life is whatever you make it. Or maybe I'll just go back to 2. Maybe I'll just make sure I do it at 2 instead of 3. Right now it's 3. It's 3:13 here. So maybe I should just make sure I do it at 2 so I can appease the people that like it earlier and the people that like it late. I don't know. Heiko from Brazil. Heiko. I'm pretty hungry. I ate a little bit of breakfast earlier, but it did not fill me up. Do the stream at a different number corresponding to the Fibonacci sequence each week. Damn. I don't know about that. Well, thank you guys for coming to the stream. Follow me on social media, particularly Twitter, if you want to like actually hear from me a lot. Twitter is a really good thing to follow me on. If you have Twitter, you should go ahead and follow me on Twitter. I uploaded a stream highlight on my channel today from a past stream. You should watch it if you want. As always, I don't think there were any like super controversial debates in this stream today, but it's all love. There was never any personal things going on, but you know, it's all good. I should have a normal video essay coming soon, probably in the next few days, hopefully. I'm a little bit behind the schedule that I want to be behind, but I can buckle down and do it if I'm not lazy. Have I read The River of Doubt? I don't think so. If you want to ask me a more in-depth question, feel free to email me. hello@theonejanitor.com. I think that is in the description as well, if you don't remember it after me saying it. And if you'd like to support the stream and help make it more sustainable, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 a month helps out a lot. The patrons are basically my lifeblood right now. You guys that are patrons are literally like funding this channel right now and like making the videos sustainable. So that's great. So if you want to contribute to that, that would be awesome. End with a quote. I don't know. I don't have one off the top of my head. Let's see if I can find one real quick. Wait, I know what I'll do. I watched a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk, and I know he has a lot of good quotes, so I'm gonna find one. Okay, here's a quote from Gary Vaynerchuk. Live your passion. What does that mean anyway? It means that when you get up for work every single morning, you're pumped because you get to talk about or work with or do the thing that interests you the most in the world. You don't live for vacations because you don't need a break from what you're doing. Working, playing, and relaxing are one and the same. You don't even pay attention to how many hours you're working because to you it's not really work. You're making money, but you do whatever it is you're doing for free. It's from his book called Crush It, which I'm actually about to read. Anyway, thank you guys for coming to my stream. You guys are cool. I appreciate you. And I hope that you have a great day. And I hope that you help someone else have a great day. Okay, bye.